Everyone keeps telling you that you need to get out there in retirement, join things, meet people, stay busy. And honestly, the thought of doing all that sounds exhausting to you. And you're wondering if something's wrong with you. Well, there isn't. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly why. If you're retired or planning to retire soon, and you're the kind of person who actually likes your own company, you're in the right place. Actually, I was just talking to a guy, retired, financially set, doing everything quote unquote right. And he goes, "Jason, I feel guilty. Everyone keeps telling me that I need to join clubs, volunteer more, go to more events. And honestly, I just don't want to." And I said, "Okay, but are you miserable?" And he thought about it for a second and he goes, "No, I'm actually really happy." So then why does he feel guilty? And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, everybody? My name's Jason. I retired 9 years ago at 39, and now I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology behind retirement, specifically why so much of the advice out there fits certain people perfectly and completely stresses out everybody else. And today, I want to talk about something that nobody addresses directly. This idea that a good retirement looks like a packed social calendar. We're talking golf leagues, community groups, volunteering 4 days a week, grandkids every weekend, travel with groups. And look, if that energizes you, incredible. Do all of it. But what if it doesn't? What if the idea of all kinds of activity sounds less like freedom and more like a second job that you didn't sign up for? See, here's the thing, and I really believe this. A huge chunk of the retirement advice industry was basically built by extroverts for extroverts. And if you're wired differently, like my wife and I are, it can make you feel like something's wrong with you, and there isn't. This channel is basically for people who did the work, built the number, and now just want to live their life on their own terms without anyone telling them that they're doing it wrong. And I want to get to something later in this video that most people never consider. There's actually a financial argument for being an introvert in retirement. But first, think about where most of the mainstream retirement research comes from. Studies on social engagement, cognitive health, happiness in retirement. They measure things like frequency of social contact, group participation, community involvement. And yeah, those studies show a correlation between social activity and well-being. But here's what most people don't realize. Correlation is not a prescription. The fact that some people thrive with lots of social contact doesn't mean that everyone needs the same dose. Psychologists have known for decades that people fall on a spectrum between introversion and extroversion. And the core difference isn't whether you like people. It's about energy. Extroverts recharge by being around people. Introverts like us recharge by being away from them. So when you take a piece of advice like stay socially active or your health will decline and apply it universally, you're essentially telling introverts to spend their retirement doing something that drains them every single day. That's not a retirement plan. That's exhausting. Real quick, if you're someone who's tired of retirement advice that feels like it was written for someone else entirely, you're exactly who I make these videos for. So hit subscribe. All right, so here's something interesting. When you flip it around, retirement might actually be ideal for introverts in a way that isn't for extroverts. I mean, think about it. For most of your working life, you had very little control over your social environment. Open offices, mandatory team lunches, meetings that could have been emails, constant small talk, networking events. For an introvert like me, the job itself, regardless of what the job was, could be a 20 to 40-year energy drain. Retirement hands you back full control. You decide who you see, how often, and for how long. You can go deep on a project that you actually care about without interruption. You can sit with your own thoughts. You can read for 3 hours without someone knocking on your door. For an introvert, that's not isolation. That's heaven. And here's something worth pointing out. Introverts tend to come in retirement with a skill set that actually serves them well. They're usually comfortable with solitude. They tend to have a small number of close, meaningful relationships rather than a wide, shallow social network. And they typically don't need a lot of external validation to feel okay about their choices. Those are advantages in retirement, especially financially, by the way. because a lot of lifestyle inflation comes from social pressure, keeping up appearances, spending money to impress people. If you genuinely don't care that much about what other people think, that's actually a pretty powerful financial edge. Now, before you take everything I just said and use it as an excuse to never leave the house again, there's something that I need to warn you about. Because there's a point where this goes sideways, and most introverts, they just don't see it coming until it already has. Look, I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying that introverts should just go full hermit and disappear from human life entirely, because there is a difference between healthy solitude and unhealthy isolation. See, solitude is a choice. You're alone because you want to be, and you're okay. Isolation is when meaningful human connection has basically disappeared. And studies on loneliness, like real loneliness, show it carries serious health consequences. We're talking increased risk of cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, depression. In fact, the Harvard study of adult development, which followed people for over 80 years, found that the quality of relationships, not the quantity, but the quality, was one of the strongest predictors of long-term health and happiness. So the goal isn't zero social contact. The goal is intentional social contact, the kind that fills you up instead of wiping you out. Now, my wife and I, and we talk about this, we're pretty deliberate about this. We go to the gym together a couple times a week. We keep that standing dinner with our closest friends. We video chat with our family regularly, and we travel a lot. Actually, we just got back from 5 months in Asia. But even then, we're not booking group tours or trying to meet 20 new people every week. We move at our own pace, and that works for us. Not because it's the right way, but because it's our way. So this is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little tricky. See, one of the biggest challenges for introverted retirees isn't their own mindset. It's the people around them. Spouses who are more extroverted and can't understand why you'd rather stay home. Adult kids who call and ask, "Are you sure you're okay? You seem like you're not getting out enough." Friends who invite you to things and take it personally when you say no. And they mean well. I want to be really clear about that. They truly care. But they're projecting their own energy needs onto you. See, an extrovert who's spending a lot of time alone probably is struggling. So when they see you spending a lot of time alone, their brain goes, "Danger, danger, something's wrong." And they try to fix it. They want to help. And the hard part is that if you don't explain what's actually going on, if you just keep declining invitations without context, it does start to look like depression or withdrawal to someone who doesn't understand introversion. So this is one place where I'd actually push introverts to be a little proactive. Have the honest conversation. Tell your spouse, tell your kids, "Look, I'm okay. I'm happy. I need you to trust that." Because the alternative, either giving into the pressure and grinding yourself down socially, or being constantly misunderstood by the people who you love, neither of those is a great outcome. So here's what I really want you to hear. Retirement is probably the first time in your adult life that nobody can make you do anything. Your boss can't schedule you, society can't mandate your hours, and that's an extraordinary amount of freedom. And the worst thing that you can do with that freedom is immediately fill it up with other people's expectations. Look, I'm definitely not a therapist, but I have talked to enough people in early retirement to know that the ones who are actually happy, the ones who look back after 10 years and feel good about how they lived, they all have one thing in common. They built their days around what actually energizes them, not what looks good to other people. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what does that actually look like practically? So here's what I would suggest. Think about activities on a spectrum. On one end, things that give you energy. On the other, things that drain it. And start building your weeks around the energy-giving stuff first, before you fill in anything else. For a lot of introverts, that might mean 1 or 2 deep activities. Something creative, something intellectual, something physical, rather than 7 shallow ones. It might mean 1 meaningful social commitment per week instead of 4 forgettable ones. It might mean protecting your mornings for yourself and scheduling people for afternoon when you're mentally ready. The point is that you get to choose. And the math on this actually works out better than the alternative. Because when you're spending your time and energy on things that genuinely fit you, you show up better for the people that you do spend your time with. You're more present, less resentful, more engaged. And that's better for your relationships and your health. My friends, I'll leave you with this. The retirement industry, the media, the advice columns, the well-meaning relatives, they paint a picture of what a fulfilled retirement looks like. And it tends to involve a lot of people, a lot of activity, a full schedule. And if you don't match that picture, it's easy to feel like you're doing it wrong. And I'm here to tell you, you're not. Quiet retirees, we're not broken. We're not antisocial. We're not wasting retirement. We might just be living in a way that actually fits who we are, probably for the first time in our adult lives. So give yourself permission to do that. You've earned the quiet. You've earned the freedom to design your days around your own energy. Don't hand that over to someone else's blueprint. And if anyone gives you grief about it, send them this video. And honestly, the fact that you watched this far tells me that you already know who you are. You just needed someone to say that it's okay. All right, that's it for today. If this connected with you, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really does help the channel. I'll see you in the next one.